Brand strategy. It's something we all love to talk about. We want to learn more about it. We want to help our clients do better. And so we get beyond this point of just executing our tactics and we get into this whole beautiful field of brand strategy. But what is brand strategy really? That's what we're going to explore in this video. So first off, I wanted to look what's out there in terms of like definitions because I don't want to reinvent the wheel. I mean, if there's a good definition on brand strategy out there, why would I do another one? So I went where everybody goes, to the most trustworthy place on the internet, Wikipedia. And so, interesting enough, when I look up brand strategy on Wikipedia, I can see that there's just a foreword to brand management. And I don't think brand strategy and brand management are the same. They have a lot of the same components, but they're definitely different. And I also asked this on Twitter, and a lot of people answered that they didn't agree that those were the same concepts. So Wikipedia doesn't have the answer. Maybe we can look elsewhere. And so there are definitions on components of the words brand strategy. For example, strategy. There are some really good definitions out there. And I love Mark Pollard's definition. He says strategy is an informed opinion about how to win. And I think that's a great definition because it says, first off, you need to inform yourself. You need to do the research, which is hugely important. It's not just an opinion, but it is still an opinion, meaning it's still subjective. It's still a belief about something that it's going to work. It's not just scientifically proven. And it's, of course, about winning. So brand strategy is never really about hurting the business or creating less value in some way. It is about winning, of course. So I love that definition on strategy. And then, of course, there's the word brand, which is, I love the definition of Marty Neumeyer. He says a brand is a person's gut feeling about a product or service, which is a really good definition. I mean, it helps you as a designer and as a client remember that branding is about perception, is about associations. It helps you to realize that you should focus on your customer. On the other hand, from a business perspective, it's hard to own perception, but you can own assets. And I think when we're talking about what a brand is, it's as important to talk about this vague understanding of a brand as a gut feeling as it is about the business value and what a brand means to an organization. And I think a brand is an asset and it has multiple layers of assets. So I think it's important to have these definitions. On the one hand, maybe they're too vague. And on the other hand, of course, we have the cliche things where it used to be a brand was a logo. And we know that's definitely not the case. But on the other hand, I think sometimes we go too far in defining brand and it becomes really vague. And if we do want to help clients and sell our services, sometimes I think it's important to have a definition of brand that comes from a more business perspective, to see a brand as an asset. And so these distinctive brand assets are, of course, a big part of your brand. These are mental associations, but also your logo, your visual identity. They are your tone of voice. They are maybe the people that represent the brand that are easily recognized and linked to your brand. Let's say Elon Musk to Tesla, for example. They're the stories that people tell about your brand. They're maybe viral stories or things that really are part of your brand, but they are something that maybe went organically. There are also, of course, cultural things. Maybe your brand is so ingrained in culture that it has certain truths and associations with it. It's word of mouth. It's a lot of things that are part of your brand, but they are assets to your company, of course, because the role of a brand for an organization is really important. But that's maybe another video to talk about what the value of a brand is for a company. And then there's a couple of other more things I wanted to talk about before I give you the definition, and that's there's a difference between strategy and strategic. A lot of people are thinking strategically, which is great. I mean, I think approaching a project with a strategic mindset is hugely important because it helps you to make sure that you take the right steps, that you take a step back, you look at the problem, what's the real problem here, and then you move forward. But there is a difference between being strategic and strategy. A strategy for a company, or a brand strategy for a company, is a specific set of goals, a set of definitions, a phase of research, all these things that really is defined and that people can talk about. What's the strategy for our brand or our company? And that's a difference with just being strategic, of course. And then, of course, strategy a lot of times is compared with frameworks. I mean, I hear a lot of people talk about different brand strategy frameworks. There's pyramids, there's keys, there's, I don't know, circles, and all kinds of beautiful graphs with colors and fancy words. There's SWOT analysis, there's so much things. And I think sometimes we tend to confuse a framework with what a strategy is, because I do think a strategy is always custom, bespoke to the problem, to the company you're working with, even brand strategy. So you might have frameworks that you work with, but they are always tools and not the strategy themselves. So don't take a framework and just fill it in and think, yeah, that's the brand strategy. I don't really believe that. Okay, so now we kind of know what brand strategy isn't and maybe some different things to keep in mind. I'm going to give you my definition. So a brand strategy is a platform that bridges business strategy with branding and marketing. There's, of course, a couple of really important components to that definition. First, it's bridging. It's really important that you understand that it's not a one-way street. It isn't that business strategy tells brand strategy what it should be and that's it. There's two-way communication. A lot of the times when I'm working with clients, I get new insights on the category, on the consumers, on something that might inspire the business strategy to be changed, the business model, let's say competitive advantages that they didn't know they had, or maybe they can create a new product range for a new audience that wasn't there. So the brand strategy very much can inspire and change the business strategy, but of course it starts with business strategy. It shouldn't be the other way around. I see too much strategists out there that are saying that brand strategy is like more important than business strategy, and I don't believe that. Brand strategy is an extension of it, but that bridge is of course important. So another big word here is it's a platform, and that platform means that it's a starting point. It's almost like an airport where branding and marketing can take off from, but they always need to come back to it and they get guided by it. So understanding that it's a platform is really important. Why? Because it's not the same as like saying this should be your branding and this should be your marketing and these should be your tactics. No, it's a platform where you can start from. It's really actionable. A brand strategy makes people in marketing and branding look at it and understand like, okay, so we can do this or we can do that, or based on that insight or that truth, we can make a brand that looks like this. But it's not like your brand strategy shouldn't be telling like this is what the brand needs to look like. That's what branding as a discipline is for, and that's what marketing as a discipline is for. So there is a big difference between like being laying the fundamentals for branding and marketing and telling branding and marketing what they are. I think brand strategy is a phase that comes before that, and it should be based on that. So, and then of course there is three other important words in this definition, and that's business strategy, branding, and marketing. So business strategy is also a lot of things, and there's gonna be a lot of overlap with what brand strategy is. But so here are, for example, some things we can see that are really important to business strategy. It's knowing where to put your resources. It's meeting challenges and threats in the industry, or even on a bigger scale. For example, right now, it might be like doing an acquisition of a certain competitor, because you can then quickly have an advantage in the market. That's not brand strategy, for example. You can't say just from brand strategy, well, we need to acquire this. There's a lot more to it than just the brand perspective. But the brand perspective can tell you, hey, from the customer research, we understand that something can happen in this category, but then again, there's business strategy needed to actually confirm that and do that in the right way and make sure that it's financially sound. So I think business strategy is a lot about that, but again, it bleeds into it. Another big word here is branding, of course. What branding means is it's really It's a deliberate, continuous process of developing observable, distinctive assets associated with a product or service. It's quite a lengthy definition, and I'm gonna make another video about branding specifically. But basically, I think the most important takeaway here is that branding is creating those distinctive assets. It's that act, that discipline of making sure a brand is recognized, and it's different from that definition of what a brand is on the most vaguest level, because I see a lot of people saying, well, branding is everything. It's how you talk, it's what you say, it's how, where you put it out. And for me, that's too vague. So I like it a little bit more defined so we can know what as a discipline is, and our clients can know what to expect when they pay for branding. And then there's marketing, of course. And I think marketing is also a really broad discipline, but I really love the 4 Ps as just a basic model, like product, place, promotion, and price. Those are really like essential to marketing. And of course, there's things such as funnels, there's advertising, there's social media. There's all those things that fall under marketing. But I see a lot of people thinking that marketing is only the 1P, promotion, but that's not true. Marketing is a really broad, and again, it feeds back into other things. So if we look at that from like a structure, we can see there's business strategy feeding into brand strategy, and that again shapes a platform for marketing and branding. But in an ideal world, business strategy and brand strategy influence each other, but also marketing and branding influence each other, and also they influence the brand strategy and the business strategy, because marketing can give you feedback. If you're putting out content or ads or whatever, you can get a lot of feedback that again can maybe inspire to create new brand assets, or maybe to change up your brand strategy, and maybe even change up the business strategy. But there is a hierarchy, you see. I mean, it's not that branding is everything, and so I think a lot of people that go from design to brand strategy, they forget that marketing is a really important aspect of this, of brand strategy. And so they kind of say like, well, yeah, that's branding is more important, it's everything. And I don't quite agree with that. I think these disciplines are on the same level, and they should come from brand strategy. So what does a brand strategist do on a day-to-day basis? Well, there's a lot of things: workshops, desktop research, interviews, writing, reading, listening, creating presentations, guiding the transition to creative executions. There's brand guardianship, where you actually, like, after you did the brand strategy, you communicate with your clients about new ideas, you steer the brand in the right direction, you make sure that the brand strategy is guarded and like that it's consistently built upon. It's also a big role, I think, for brand strategists, is that continuous role. And here are some brand strategy deliverables, some things that will actually be in a brand strategy. So there's of course research and insights, which is hugely important, competitive analysis, customer research, brand audits, case studies, and so much more. There's of course product definition, not in the sense that we're designing the product, but making sure that we know what we call the product, what the benefits are, what maybe the principles are behind it. That's really important. The product or the service, of course. There's culture definition, things such as values, purpose, beliefs, knowing what drives the organization forward is really important. There's audience definition, knowing what the jobs to be done from a consumer or customer standpoint are, what the segments are, what they really want, what their expectations of the category are. These are all really important. And then there's of course brand positioning, making sure you understand what the differentiator is, what the unique selling proposition is, what the value proposition is, and how that relates to other competitors is also a big part of brand strategy, but it's not everything. And then there's of course brand personality, making sure you have defined the right personality for the brand, so people in marketing and branding can build creative executions and communications based on that. Voila, I think that was brand strategy in a nutshell. Of course, there's a lot more to talk about, and I want to create a lot more videos. So let me know in the comments what your definition of brand strategy is, if you liked mine, and maybe if you want to add something. And of course, I would really appreciate you subscribing to the YouTube channel, because there's going to be a lot more content coming your way. So thank you, and see you next time.